Hello, Achim Yekarim. How are you? Hope you had an amazing Shabbat. Wanted to start off the week with a nice Chidush, connecting last week's parasha to this week's as well as to the holiday. So in last week's Parashat Metzorah, we learn about the disease of Tzarat. Tzarat is a spiritual and a physical disease. We mostly don't know much about it in our day because it rarely exists. It still exists. There's actually a place in Jerusalem where there's a hospital especially for those people because the disease is incurable. But nonetheless, the reasons behind the disease is what we're going to learn about. There are 11 reasons of why this disease happens. And one of them is Lashon Hara. Saying Lashon Hara, speaking about somebody even if something is true, and you say it and you know that true saying or sentence you're going to say is going to hurt somebody in any way, is obviously it's Lashon Hara. It's a big sin. Now, why do we mention Lashon Hara? Lashon Hara is something we can learn about throughout the entire year. Why is it connected to right now? Because as we all know, PeSach is coming up. We're only days away from the holy, amazing holiday of PeSach. And Hashem is telling us that one of the major obligations of PeSach is to remove all of the chametz out of our homes. All of the, chametz out of the places we stay in, whether it's in our car, in our home, in our office, wherever you're going to be during the holiday must be absent of all chametz. But the time has come for us to actually look at it in a little bit of a different way. What about the chametz that's inside us? And I'm not talking about the physical chametz, but actually the spiritual chametz. All of the different sins that we make on a regular basis where we've almost become accustomed to it, where it's become part of our nature. Where, listen, somebody makes sins occasionally, they occasionally get upset about something, and they lose their mind and get angry. Of course, it's a great sin. The Ramban says that when somebody gets angry, all types of Gehinnom control him. So obviously anger is a sin. It's a very bad sin. But if you do it rarely, and it's once in a blue moon, okay, it's never going to be approved, but you're not the worst person on earth. But if your temper has gotten to the point where it's acceptable by you and everyone around you to see you get so upset, so worked up about certain things in life, or really anything in life, then obviously there's a major problem. And this is where the Tzarat situation comes in, where Hashem is telling us, listen, you have a problem. You have to remove this disease from you. So Hashem is going to give us signs. What kind of signs did He give the people of the Tzarat? When someone did something bad and said something wrong and they made a Lashon Hara, the first sign that Hashem sent him was different colors on his walls. After the colors of his walls of his house, were that way, he would ask for the Kohen to come. The Kohen would come, see it, and he would if he identified it as Tzarat, they would have to destroy it. They would have to remove everything out of the house and destroy it. So the question is, why does Hashem first affect the house? Why don't He just send us like a sign, like a little zap in our brain every time we said Lashon Hara? Why don't He send us some type of message different in our house? Because unfortunately, in today's world, nothing's really changed from 3,300 years ago. And we haven't really learned that much, unless we've literally connected ourselves to Hashem's instructions. And Hashem is telling us that unless it hits your house, you're not going to care about it. If it hits something else, you're always going to say, oh, it's bad luck. If a business deal didn't go through, you say, the customer is bad. If a contract didn't go through, it's just a bad economy. If a issue with the wife, she's just in a bad mood. Maybe she has the time of the month. One of these crazy things that the Satan himself puts in our brain to convince us that it's something else and it's not Hashem himself giving us a message. But when there's problems at home, when there's discoloration at home, we start reflecting. We start looking at things. What did I do wrong? What's going on? Why I'm working so hard at work, but yet wife's not happy. The kids are failing at school. No one wants to go to synagogue. No one wants to pray. No one wants to do anything. No one gives me any respect. And the guy that's working his heart out every single day feels like he's become a slave. And I had this conversation with somebody just the other day, and asked them the question: what's the difference between the slaves of today and the slaves of Egypt? We're about to hear the story once again in PeSach, and we need to know the answer. So she said, no, it's the same thing. They're both slaves. If slaves, people that are slaves, meaning people that are just dedicating their life to work, is okay, but when it gets to a point where it becomes their life, like it used to be for me, then it's obviously not okay. You become a slave. What's the difference between today's slave and the previous generation slaves? In Egypt, they knew they were slaves. Today, we think we're winners. Today, we think we're just being ambitious. So that's something that we always have to take into account. Back into the issue of Tzarat, Hashem is telling us that when you have problems at home, when you have shlom bayit issues, when your kids are not doing well at work, at school, when the parnasah that you're getting that finally arrives, by the time it arrives to your home, there's not much left. You're having all of these issues, that means you have a problem with me. That means I'm sending you a message to pay attention. Because if you don't change it, then the next stage advances. And this is one of the things that we have to reflect on every single day. But the reality of it is that this is an opportune time to do it right before PeSach. Because when we're cleaning out the mess out of the house that's not allowed in PeSach, even more important, we need to clean out the mess that's inside us. In this week's parasha, we start the Parashat Achrei with the story, or the end of the story of what happened to the two sons of Aaron HaKohen. The two sons of Aaron HaKohen died in last week's parasha. And the parasha starts by Yidaber Adonai el Moshe, Achrei mot shnei bnei Aaron. Hashem spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's two sons. The question is, why did they die? The Gemara says that Nadav and Avihu, these two sons, were more righteous than Moshe and Aaron. More righteous. So how could they die? Moshe and Aaron obviously are the greatest people that ever lived. How could these two that are considered higher die? The answer is arrogance. Nadav and Avihu got to a point where they said, listen, look at us. Our father is Aaron HaKohen, the most important Kohen in history. When the Mashiach comes, Aaron HaKohen is going to be the Kohen too. Aaron HaKohen is the first Kohen. Aaron HaKohen has something where Hashem changed his DNA forever. Not only him, but all of his descendants. As we talked about in our Torah and science classes, and on Tuesdays, we've showed it from Rabbi Zamir Cohen's book, Scientific Proofs that Kohanim, the people that are true Kohanim, not just anyone that's called Cohen, because there's many of them that are not even Jewish, but true Kohanim, which sometimes could even have a last name like Singer, like Rabbi Tovia Singer, for example. He's 154th generation Kohen, a very righteous rabbi. And the key here is that the Kohanim actually have a different DNA than all of humankind. So Aaron HaKohen, even more so. Aaron HaKohen, wow. And then, so they're saying, oh, our father's Aaron HaKohen. Our uncle is Moshe Rabbeinu. You can't get better than that. Our uncle is Moshe Rabbeinu. Our aunt is Miriam, the prophetess, one of the greatest prophets that ever lived. A river of water is following us for 40 years in the desert just because of her. Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah. Aaron HaKohen he has the Choshen. He's speaking to God directly. I mean, this is how could it be? And nobody can better than us. How could we find anyone that's a good fit for us? This is where the problem. The fact that Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam were all righteous people, were all amazing people, and these two had the benefit of having them related to them is great. It's fantastic. But when they took it to their heads and made it an issue where they said there's no woman in the world that would be enough for us to marry, because they themselves were righteous, they themselves were Talmidim Chachamim, that's when they took something good and turned it into something disgusting. That's when they took something that Hashem gave them as a gift and turned it into poison. And this is one of the 5 reasons of why when they went into the Kodesh Kodashim, when they were not permitted, Hashem killed them instantly. A normal righteous person that makes a sin, Hashem doesn't kill them on the spot. He gives them chances. Even someone that's even less righteous, He gives them chances. But these two did something that's completely detestable by Hashem, mamash disgusting to Hashem. Showing pride is not something that Hashem likes in any way. This is one of the most important things we need to learn about, because when we started this shiur, we talked about, listen, anger is not good. Lashon hara is not good. But why am I mentioning arrogance? Because arrogance is the reason for both. Arrogance, pride is the reason and the foundation for all major sins, because someone that has arrogance can make all sins. Why is somebody saying Lashon hara? Because they think that they're better than somebody else. That's why. Why is somebody angry? Because they think that they're entitled to something and the world owes them something. Well, the reminder here in this shiur is that Hashem doesn't work for you. You are here to work for Him. You are here to serve Him. So to have any pride when Hashem specifically told you this is something that's considered to'avat Hashem, disgusting to Hashem, obviously reminds us that during this PeSach, when we're about to entertain all of the family, we're about to get together with everybody else, we have a few days to work on our pride and get prepared to not show up as a show and tell, but instead of just telling the people of how we've improved and how we're going to continue working on ourselves in the next year to improve even better with getting closer to Hashem. Chazakim u'buchim. We'll have an amazing week, Be'ezrat Hashem, this week. And if there's any specific issues you want me to talk about this week, we will. I'm going to try to also mention certain things about PeSach this week in the Chidush. And Be'ezrat Hashem will also have some shiurim. Kol tuv.